Welcome to another episode of What's New in Beauty. My name is Nia Lee, and I'm super excited to have you guys here. I know it has been more than a minute since I have come through these airwaves and spoken to y'all. And I'll definitely share a little bit more about that maybe in a future episode if more people are interested in kind of wanting to know why I decided to take a hiatus for the last few months. But I'm more so excited to jump into today's episode and actually kind of do, again, things a little bit different every now and again. You know how we do. And I am super excited excited and also just very intrigued to talk about this topic of L'Oreal acquiring U.S. vegan brand Youth to the People. If you guys aren't aware, Youth to the People is essentially what I would consider a very Gen Z, cruelty-free, they've got that whole kind of clean kind of vibe. I say very Gen Z because to me, they seem to have the whole newer generation, the whole kind of people that may or may not know everything about skincare, they find a way to make skincare so relatable and so fun, especially for people who are a little bit younger, or again, just anybody who's interested in kind of that vegan, cruelty-free kind of vibe when it comes to skincare. And I don't know, to me, they're always a brand that knocks it out of the parks with their launches, their products. Everyone's always going goo goo gaga over everything they launch. It's actually kind of crazy. They recently actually just launched, they launched this new serum. It's called the multi-peptide and cactus elixir oasis serum. And the girls were going crazy, the girls and the guys. And to me, they just always have a really great way of knocking it out the park and getting everybody excited about their products. And I'll say this as well, too, as somebody who has always wanted to try the brand and recently actually got to try what I would consider is probably one of their most cult best-selling products, which is their superfood cleanser, the kale, green tea, spinach, vitamin ones. And I like it. It's a decent cleanser, especially someone who has oily acne-prone skin like myself. It's a decent cleanser if you're looking something to clean your skin and your skin's going to feel, really clean and nourished after. But, I definitely think, a lot of people are into the brand. The hype is real, at least from my eyes, and everybody seems to say so. But when the news came out that they were being acquired by L'Oreal, the flips table, everybody was like, okay, what's going on? I can't support Youth to the People anymore. They're not going to be cruelty-free anymore. This is a big, big thing, and so many people are definitely up in arms about it. But one of the things that I want to specifically address is kind of the press release that went out about this, essentially L'Oreal acquiring and signs an agreement to have Youth to the People now. So essentially, they did this on December 8th, and it pretty much was to acquire Youth to the People, an American skincare company based in California. Now, Youth to the People was founded in Los Angeles by two cousins in 2015. Wow, I can't even believe they came out in 2015. That's such a short period of time, actually. By two cousins, Greg Gonzalez and Joe Calios. I think that's how I'm pronouncing it correctly. But the brand is inspired by their grandmother, Eva, who started a professional skincare line 40 years ago utilizing plant extracts and innovative active ingredients. The brand's growth has been supported by its investors. I didn't know they had investors. That's really interesting to know. And they develop high-end, high-performance skincare products known for formulas that combine premium vegan blends of superfood extracts and science. So, okay, very interesting to know this as well, too, that they're definitely that brand that, again, to me, they always kind of seem like that brand that was very innovative. They put together ingredients that you never would ever expect. And to me, they always definitely felt like they were an innovative brand. And they are an innovative brand, you know what I mean, to be creating these high performance skincare products with these vegan blends. Again, available in US, Canada, Australia, and select European countries where it enjoys a very strong appeal. The brand is marketed through an omni-channel distribution, mix of D2C, e-commerce, and selective distribution. So again, very just kind of like a synopsis of the brand itself. And this is actually what the president of L'Oreal Luxe said about the acquisition, saying, "We are very pleased to welcome Youth to the People to the Youth to the People brand, its founders and fantastic teams. Because of its solid reputation and remarkable product quality, Youth to the People is a favorite among all genders." I completely agree about that. And they do a really great job at marketing themselves as that brand that isn't about, throw gender out the window. Everybody deserves skincare. There's no such thing as like women's skincare, men's skincare. Like everybody's getting the skincare, period. Gender, race, however you identify, like they definitely come off as that type of brand. And I love that they're able to do that. Again, it's skincare expertise based on healthy, vegan, high efficiency formulas, make it a very strategic addition to the L'Oreal Luxe and the brand's core values and distinct spirit reflected in its initiatives to amplify diverse voices, build a fair world, and enhance consciousness of the planet will be further celebrated at L'Oreal, not only because they are precious to us, but because they are very true to their own values. So I love that. I think that was a very clean, polished statement from from the president of L'Oreal Luxe. It seems to me as well too that You to the People is definitely that brand that, you know, is definitely going to allow L'Oreal to have this kind of profile of, you know, wow, like we're a brand that really actually cares, you know what I mean? And I will say this, like L'Oreal is definitely one of those brands I think a lot of people, you know, they look at as like kind of the big three brands, right? It's L'Oreal, it's Estee Lauder, and let me actually like see who the other type of brand that is kind of like the big three, because I think like everybody has something to say about these like particular type of brands. And at the end of the day, it's okay. Yeah. Here's an article. Who owns the beauty industry? which I really, you know, this is really interesting to know because everybody's always like, who are these? You know, it's always the big three, right? And everything that we do, it's always like the big three brands. And then it's like everybody else is underneath them. So it's like, who are the owners of these essential brands here? And why is it that everyone goes so crazy over it? And why is it that always people get very upset about the bigger brands kind of acquiring the smaller brands when it just seems to me that this is just, you know, what any of the big three like telemarketing companies would do. You know what I mean? There's like, you know, obviously in Canada, there is Rogers, there's Bell, and those are kind of like the big guys. And then everything underneath that is usually, you know, typically underneath, but everyone always typically has, you know, it's like you're giving your options like Pop as well too. It's like Coke and Pepsi and like all these other things are underneath it. So I'm always like very, very confused, you know, kind of why people are always kind of a little bit up in arms about it a little bit. Okay, here we go. Bersdorf. Cody. Okay, yeah. So these are some of the other like, you know, kind of bigger brands. But again, this is a very interesting thing to me right off the bat, just kind of like hearing people just kind of, you know, get into the mode of You to the People kind of being that, again, that brand that they really are excited to add to their profile. I mean, they're talking about the diversity, which is, you know, obviously a really big button topic and buzzword of 2021. And I believe onward, of course, the conversation of, you know, that distinctive spirit, you know what I mean? That consciousness, that word, even the word vegan. I think a lot of like companies are kind of wanting to, you know, even push that word. They even want to push the word clean beauty even more. So it seems to me that this was a move that L'Oreal needed to make in order to, again, add this very, you know, kind of, again, you know, pun intended, youthful, conscious, vegan, you know, skincare for all genders type of brand that doesn't have this distinct quality that I'm assuming all the other brands under L'Oreal essentially has. So again, the president, North America and chief executive officer of L'Oreal USA said, "We have been inspired by the passion and vision of the brand's two founders in bringing the best of the health conscious California lifestyle to high performance beauty. We believe in the potential of this special brand, and we look forward to working with Youth to the People team to help them realize this potential. I'm thrilled to have Youth to the People join our growing portfolio of American brands on the West Coast." So yeah, and last but not least, this is the last statement from the actual Youth to the People founders. "We founded Youth to the People to continue our family's legacy of making skincare and to inspire and represent our community. Joining the L'Oreal family gives us the opportunity to realize all the dreams of Youth to the People. Our brand's mission is to make high-performance skincare using vegan ingredients with practices that are good to the planet and good to the people." Love that. "We're beyond excited about this partnership and the opportunity to amplify our shared values of investing in a just and sustainable future for all." So to me, I think this is a good move on all parts. Everybody seems to feel really great about it. The only people that don't seem to feel good are the people, you know, the people. the youth to the people, they do not seem happy about this. I've been seeing comments all underneath their posts. I don't know if like they're deleting some of them. I don't know if like essentially as well, like maybe they're hiding a couple of them as well too, because every now and again you'll see like little spurts of comments being like, you know, why are you selling to L'Oreal, that type of situation. But you know what I think is really important to note, and I've said this over and over again as someone who is kind of in this beauty business space, it's like, with everything you create, and not even just the beauty business side of it, just business, right? When you get into business, the goal is not to quote unquote stay small. Like, I know we're in a revolution now where like small businesses definitely have the power, and to support a small business, to be a local business, like that's what everyone's currently doing. But when you really think about it, like the goal is not to have a small business forever. The goal is to have a brand that really can reach everybody. And to me, it seems like Youth to the People was obviously reaching a great amount of people, but by obviously being acquired by L'Oreal, they're going to be reached by so much more people. And, you know, again, the conversation of, you know, them not being cruelty free anymore, I think that was like the biggest thing that I saw across all boards. Also, shout out to Cruelty Free Kitty, because typically I follow Cruelty Free Kitty just to kind of like be aware of like, you know, the brands that are cruelty free and whatnot. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not the biggest like cruelty free, like not every brand that I personally use has to be cruelty free. I know some people are very much like that. But when I saw that they had put out the news that Youth to the People is now owned by a company that tests on animals, I thought this was an interesting post. And I also knew for sure it was going to garner a lot of engagement, a lot of people going back and forth. Again, a lot of people were kind of like, that's a bummer. I love the brand. I really don't appreciate when brands do this. I'm so disappointed. Like that was the overall conversation that I saw happening across all these platforms. And when I originally saw this news, this was actually on Estee Laundry. So for me, this was even just interesting to see from that perspective, because Estee Laundry is a little bit more of like, I would consider them a little bit more dramatic. I would consider them a little bit more of like, you know, they're coming through with tea. I even saw quite a few people kind of being like, listen, just because Youth to the People is being acquired by L'Oreal now doesn't mean that's automatically going to make the brand cruelty free, you know, or not cruelty free, I should say. And in my eyes, I kind of look at it from that perspective as well too, because there are tons of brands under L'Oreal that are still cruelty free. Now, again, do they get the same pop? Do they get the same hype? Probably not. Again, Youth to the People is a very well-known brand. I believe they sell at Sephora. Like, they're pretty much known, you know what I mean? And again, like I said, they definitely corner that market of that very cool, fun, skincare for all, vegan, we're edgy, we do innovative things with ingredients, you know, X, Y, and Z. Like, they definitely give off that vibe. And I think a lot of people within this world, especially, you know, their main target audience, which to me is giving very Gen Z, very, you know, TikTok, giving, you know, very, they're definitely not targeting like the 30 onward group. You know what I mean? Like that stuff, like, you know, and again, like I said, men, women, however you identify, all genders, like that's typically their vibe. So I think it's a lot of people who are like upset about that particularly, because let's just be honest, like, again, I'm 26, so I believe I fall in that Gen Z millennial, you know, in that world. And we're not afraid to be vocal about the fact that we are tired of these brands doing this. You know what I mean? But the thing for me that I'm always interested to know is that people that are causing a ruckus on social, are they going to keep the same energy when it comes to sales, deals, when the brand comes out with new products and the brand is sending PR to these influencers? You know what I mean? Like, that's always the interesting thing for me is like, are people going to keep the same energy that way? Or are people just going to keep supporting the brand because they want to keep supporting the brand, they love the products and X, Y, and Z? You know what I mean? Like, I always feel like when it comes to certain brands that people love, they will always make some sort of exception as to why they can continue to support that brand, regardless if like the brand did something toxic a year ago, or maybe they were canceled for something, or like maybe they're not cruelty free anymore. Like, there's always something that people will do. And I think as well, consumers are so fickle. People are fickle. This generation that we're currently in, this Gen Z vibe, we can be very fickle too. One moment we can love you, we can support you. It's like, yes, you're the one. And then 2 seconds later, it's like, get out of here. We don't appreciate you and we're not going to support you. And what I do think is that everybody's very vocal about how it is that they currently feel. But I'm just always interested to know, are you going to put your money where your mouth is? Or are you going to put your, Twitter fingers where your money is. You know what I mean? Like, is that really going to be where you come through with that kind of honesty and say to yourself, well, I'm not going to support that brand because now they're going to be sold by L'Oreal? Like, that's always the interesting thing for me. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to say congrats, because it seems to me that Youth to the People was very excited for this acquisition. L'Oreal seems very excited for this acquisition as well too. And if it raises a little bit of the profile of L'Oreal, I mean, the profile of L'Oreal doesn't need to be raised. Like, let's be honest, like, they're a brand that's going to probably live on for decades and decades and decades. But they're definitely, it seems to me that they're a brand that's definitely, again, aware of these brands. And again, you can't hate on it because it's just business, right? These bigger brands who have been around for centuries almost, I'm probably exaggerating, but decades. These brands that have been around for decades are realizing that they cannot compete with these newer, D2C, very Gen Z, very influential brands that literally corner the market of what skincare is currently right now. And as we know, skincare is probably like the most top rated thing that everybody and their mom is talking about. Like, I feel like makeup itself has kind of taken a bit of a back turn. And I think even with the pandemic, people weren't, feeling the need to like put on makeup and all that stuff, but they made sure that their skincare was on point. So like, it goes to show you, like, I would love, again, I've spoken about this before about like sales of skincare and online shopping, those didn't stop. So for me, Youth to the People, again, was always that brand that was okay with innovating. And I believe they even launched that superfood cleanser during the pandemic as well too, which again, to me, really put them on the map even more so, because again, for me, I wasn't really checking for Youth to the People like that. Like, I've always heard of the brand. I always saw everybody talking about it. I knew that they definitely had some clout in this social media skincare world, but I didn't know to the extent until I would go over to their page and just like, I'd see the PR they would send out to people, how people would sing their praises, write these long, like these long, like, paragraphs and these blog posts essentially and these videos about Youth to the People, not realizing how much, impact they had on the industry. But I don't know. I say congrats to Youth to the People because clearly this is something that they wanted to happen. Congrats to L'Oreal as well for adding another brand underneath their belt. I mean, at the end of the day, it is just business, and you don't ever create something, at least a business, to keep it small forever. Like, yes, make it indie. Yes, make it cool, whatever. But when you're selling in Sephora, when you get the sales that you do, I think like I just actually read like the sales of Youth to the People. The brand is expected to record more than $50 million of sales this year of 2021. That's actually very insane to me. That is very insane to me. But again, this just goes to show you the power of this brand that clearly they weren't hurting during the pandemic. And L'Oreal is just being smart. L'Oreal is just being smart. Yes, Youth to the People. They'd also partnered with other brands, like I said, as well. They had a minority investment. So again, this brand was definitely not a brand that was looking to stay small. Again, shout out to all the indie brands. But like, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily, like, as an indie brand, I feel like even today, the goal is to be indie, but to like still be everywhere, which is an interesting conversation because at the time, it never used to be a thing of you being an indie brand and you like, not wanting to be known, you know what I mean? Or like you had a cult following of people. Now, because of social media, everything is so accessible. So even you as a quote unquote indie brand who's on these platforms, on a TikTok, on a Pinterest, you could build so much of a cult following of people and customers, people that really, really rock with you. And then when you get on these, again, the TikToks, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, and people start talking, the Instagrams, people start talking about your products and they become, let's just say, viral. All of a sudden, you are not this indie brand anymore. You are this brand that everybody is talking about. And you got to understand that these big brands are watching that. You know what I mean? Like, I always love that, especially like being in this marketing space, that I love seeing what these brands are doing, especially the indie brands, because these big brands are taking note. And I say this as well, too, to anybody who's listening and is in the beauty industry, has a beauty brand, product-based, whatever, that like, it's always really also good to look at what the big brands are doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's important to look at the move that L'Oreal did and say to yourself, L'Oreal, right, this brand that has been around for decades, is now deciding to acquire Youth to the People, a brand that was started by two Hispanic men inspired by their grandmother and is about innovative, vegan ingredients and superfoods and certain things like you got to ask yourself as well too, like even you creating something in this world, is this something that's going to catch the attention of these big brands? Because am I creating something so innovative and different that people are going to take note? And I have to commend, like I said, to the people for being this type of brand, for being this innovative brand, because I don't look at them as any other brand. You know what I mean? Like I don't look to them and say, oh yeah, there's a brand already like that exists. Like they definitely stand as, top tier vegan skincare, innovative, Gen Z focused, very cool. Very cool and hip to the youth, if I do say so myself. And that's of just, again, as someone who's looking from the outside in and someone who has like one product from them, like I said, the Superfood Cleanser, which I enjoy. And if you tried it as well too, let me know. But I think at the end of the day, it seems like a right move. And again, I just hope that people keep the same energy, because like the comments underneath some of these posts are just like wild to me. Like I'll read you actually some of them because they're very, very interesting. An interesting comment that just popped up here was about Paula's Choice. So if you guys don't know, Paula's Choice to me, again, definitely gives off a vibe. They're definitely like a little bit more on the clinical side, but again, a brand that's been around for decades, tried and true, people love them. I feel like they kind of even pivoted a little bit, because they were definitely one of those brands that came off as like, very like drugstore, you know what I mean? Like they were giving CeraVe, but like even CeraVe, Paula's Choice, Cetaphil, like these brands that have been around for decades that are like what I would consider to be kind of household name, drugstore vibe type of thing. Like they have even been acquired and loved so much by like this younger Gen Z millennial generation, so much so that like they're very aware of diversity. They're very aware that the fact that like they shouldn't have their brand so pigeonholed. They're very aware of like their cult products that people love. They've created programs for influencers, ambassadors, people of color. It's just they're so aware of like the things that they're collaborating with influencers. Like these brands have like really been taking notes and saying to themselves, like, how can we stay top of mind for these, Gen Z kids, essentially? And I'm throwing myself in that world as well. Like, how can we stay top of mind that people want to mess with us, essentially, you know what I mean? And don't just look at us as like a clinical drugstore brand. So somebody says here, isn't it the same with Paula's Choice? Unilever acquired it. And I actually didn't know that, because to me, Paula's Choice always gives off a vibe that, again, they've tried and true. But, they definitely give off, they're not indie by any means, but they kind of sort of give an indie vibe a little bit now, a little bit. It's like a brand it's like indie, but it's like very well known. And that's what Youth to the People is kind of giving as well too. But yeah, again, people were kind of saying the same thing. They're sad about Paula's Choice. Again, you have other people here recommending some other really dope brands like the Inky List and Versed, if people are, Coco Kind, if they're looking for different things. Which again, these are brands who, again, are household names, but are not as big, as they should be. Like we can even take it back to even when Deciem was being acquired by Estee Lauder, and how much people were like blowing the roof off of it. They were like, I can't support Deciem anymore. I just bought 20 products from The Ordinary. What's going on? And it's like, sis, use your products, you know what I mean? But like, just don't buy from them again. Like you didn't know, you don't have to return it. You don't have to double down. But, people are always going to talk outlandishly online and probably do the complete opposite in person. Somebody was like, I was considering their eye cream, but will buy elsewhere. And it's like, okay, if that's what you're going to do, just go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? Like, I guess it's social media. You got to add in your 2-piece. You got to add in your 2 cents. But I don't know. I just think sometimes people can get really up in arms, and then we'll do the complete opposite. Someone's like, huge shame. The future is more ethical and cruelty-free. Clearly, they have no idea what's going on. Somebody said, what about Biosense? Which I recently heard a lot of kind of like issues with Biosense recently, and people kind of like, side-eyeing them as a brand. Again, there's always going to be something that these brands are going to be side-eyed for. Somebody said, I have mixed feelings about parent companies. On the one hand, it might be a positive and more in showing these larger companies that the people want cruelty-free and sustainable options. While will they realize that where the money is coming from and shift their own practices? it's too soon to say. On the other, I am disappointed when successful cruelty-free companies have a price for their values. And again, this becomes a conversation of ethics and values, which like, again, as I was saying in the beginning, like Youth to the People is a brand that has values. It's why L'Oreal decided to acquire them in the first place. And to even think, you know what I mean, that now Youth to the People, like their values are being put in question, you know what I mean, is always an interesting thing. You know, again, this is where, you know, and I wish, you know, and I don't think Youth to the People is going to say anything. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think it's always just interesting to note, you know what I mean, that when brands are making this type of decision, is it really something that, you know, is it something to really be taken so serious? You know what I mean? Like, it is just skincare. It is a brand that you shop from and have shot from in the past. You know, you don't have a scarlet letter now because you decide that you now, you know, maybe don't want to support the brand, or maybe you do want to support the brand because you really like their products. Like literally you have somebody here saying, I just bought their superfood cleanser a few weeks ago. I love it too. This is so disappointing. So again, my whole thing is this going to really change the trajectory of Youth to the People and people supporting the brand? Because people are also saying, you know, when these brands get acquired by these larger big three companies, something always changes. The formula changes. Things aren't the same. You know, I'm not really sure about it anymore. And it becomes this situation where people are always kind of like side-eyeing the situation. Yeah, I love it. To me, I love the discourse. I love, you know, the fact that Youth to the People has been acquired. I also love that this is making people think differently a little bit about who maybe they're choosing to support. But I also just am really a big fan of just kind of like really just happy that like these indie brands are kind of getting the spotlight they deserve. Whether or not this makes it, you know, this changes a lot for Youth to the People about them being cruelty free is a whole other conversation. Like I said, personally, I'm not a cruelty free, like, you know, I don't, you know, it's not like they got to be cruelty free or nothing. Like I'm definitely not one of those people. But I think for everybody, you know, when it comes to ethics, when it comes to values, you know, is that in question for you? Or do you just want to use the skincare because like you like it and is it really good? And, you know, do you want to feel like, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, especially if you're somebody who's like not on social media and like you don't have to be an influencer, like buy the products that you want to buy the superfood cleanser, buy the, you know, the serum, buy whatever it is that you want, you know, because at the end of the day, no one can really judge you except for yourself. And if Youth to the People is making this move for themselves as a brand, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like brands are going to do what brands are going to do. You know what I mean? Like businesses are going to do what they got to do to make money. That's how they survive. That's how they can have these epic marketing rollouts and these dope products so they can pay for the laboratories and the scientists and the chemists and the dermatologists that they work with, the influencers. Like everything makes up something. And I think sometimes as the consumer, it can be hard to think that way. And like, again, as consumers, you're not really supposed to think that way. You know what I mean? Like I think about it because I'm in marketing and I understand like what goes into certain things. And I also, you know, am in business, so I understand how much of that goes into it. But the average person is not, you know, running a skincare company that's making millions of dollars and doesn't really know like what exactly goes into all of that. And I think people just need to like take a chill pill just for 2 seconds and really ask yourself, like, is this something that you're going to really allow you to stop talking about this brand, stop promoting them, stop using their products, purchasing, like whatever that may be. And I think it just also gives people an interesting perspective just all around with the entire thing. But that's mainly what I wanted to talk about today with y'all today. I know we're doing one topic, and I think I kind of want to switch it up with one topic, especially over now during the holidays as well too. But I also just really also wanted to talk about this issue talk about this piece of news, I should say, not really issue, because I think this is such a hot button topic. And I think the conversation of indie brands now being acquired by huge, you know, parent companies, and also the conversation of, you know, people thinking, oh, I can't support this brand because they're not cruelty free anymore, even though Youth to the People didn't say they're not. Like, there's so much going on. There's so much discourse. And again, I'm just a really big proponent to see if people are going to put their Twitter fingers where their pockets are, where their money is. And when Youth with People comes out with another dope product, which I feel like is probably on the way, because when some spicy news like this happens, it means that the brand is gonna come out with something and it's like cancel culture, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's ever really canceled because they'll come out with a song, they'll come out with a movie, and everyone will forget about it, and it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Because it's like, the product is dope. I want the product. And then people throw their values and their ethics out the windows, sometimes. I don't know. I've seen it so much, and I just think humans are so fickle. And so, all that to say, though, I cannot wait to catch you in another episode of What's New in Beauty. Appreciate y'all, and cannot wait to talk to you soon.